Well, I'm going to tell you guys right now, my story, first off, full disclaimer warning, my story comes from the fake news media. That's right, CNN. Okay, Rico? Fake news media, CNN. And I think that this study is definitely put out by a bunch of prohibitionists because, man, wait till you read this or wait till you hear this. Because serious traffic accidents due to marijuana use rise after legalization, a study finds. Being stoned behind the wheel can be more dangerous than driving drunk in Canada, where adult use cannabis was legalized in 2018, according to a new study. Oh, of course, this was a Canadian study. Documented marijuana-related traffic accidents that required treatment in an emergency room rose 475% between 2010 and 2021, the study found. Car crashes due to drunk driving grew only 9.4% during the same period, although the raw numbers of alcohol-related accidents was in the thousands, not the hundreds, as with cannabis. These guys are crazy. In a quote, the concern is that the increase in these rare but very severe traffic injuries are capturing broader trends of increasing cannabis-impaired driving over time and after legalization, said study author Dr. Daniel Moran, assistant professor of family medicine at the University of Ottawa. Just after Canadian legalization in 2018, when marijuana stores and products were limited, researchers found a 94% increase in emergency room visits. Moran said, as commercialization increased and marijuana was more widely available, visits to the emergency room grew 233% compared to the period before adult use cannabis was legalized. In a quote, the main message of this very well-conducted study is not the absolute number of crashes, but the increased rates. Cannabis is also probably underreported in car crashes, and so the absolute number might be way higher, said Dr. Marco Solmani, associate professor of psychiatry at the University of Ottawa and investigator at Ottawa Hospital Research Institute in Canada. He was not involved in the study. Car crashes involving weed were serious. In marijuana-involved accidents, nearly 90% of the victims arrived by ambulance, the study found. When an alcohol or cannabis was involved, the number of people that required an ambulance dropped by 40%. Well, that's because they're drunk and they're super flexible. In addition, nearly 50% of marijuana users in a car accident required hospital admission compared to just over 6% of those who did not use. Intensive care admissions were also higher. Nearly 22% of accidents involving those driving while stoned needed intensive care compared to just less than 2% of crashes without alcohol or cannabis involvement, according to the study published Wednesday in the journal JAMA Network Open. And in another quote, because of the way that that cannabis impacts driving performances, it reduces reaction time, decreases the ability to focus or pay attention to multiple events, and may increase risk-taking behavior. People who are cannabis impaired while driving may be driving faster, noticing hazards later, and decelerating slower, a recipe for getting into more severe traffic collisions and requiring higher levels of care, Moran said in an email. Well, we all know that's fake because the University of Michigan did a study about that, and they actually proved that cannabis you are less likely to drive erratically, and you're more likely to stop longer at a stop sign as opposed to what this doctor's claiming, but who knows? Maybe things are different up there in Canada. They also say, while the new study was specific to Canada, the problem is happening around the world in areas where adult use cannabis is legal, according to a recent umbrella review of more than 100 clinical trials and meta-analysis on the pros and cons of marijuana. In a quote, the general perception of cannabis as a natural, harmless plant is probably misleading young subjects that end up consuming high THC products with untoward events, including car crashes, said Salami, who co-authored the review via email. THC stands for tetrahydrocannabinol, which is part of the cannabis plant that produces a high. And in addition to car crashes, persons using cannabis are at increased risk of poor cognitive performance, which might contribute to a car crash and failing education and a risk of mental disorders, Salami said. Man, this guy is just a big prohibitionist. I bet you this is paid for by Project Sam. But nonetheless, driving under the influence of alcohol has been the decline in the United States, but the last National Highway Traffic Safety Emission Report from 2014 found a 48% increase in drivers testing positive for marijuana, and an updated report from the NHTSA is expected in 2024. And this thing goes on and on and on, and you can read the full article on our website at www.highat9news.com. But in the essence of time, I'm going to pause on the reading the rest of this article because this is just more prohibitionist rhetoric, in my opinion. And I want to hear what Dale and Rico have to say in regards to all of this prohibitionist talk about drugged driving that I don't believe is a real problem. But apparently it's a real problem in Canada, according to this doctor. And this is Jason Beck for the High at 9 News Hour. What do y'all think about this?